All right, here we go. With our final first four here, the number 4 team that we're going to talk about in the ACC today is UVA, the Cavaliers. Tony Bennett, one of the most interesting coaches. I mean, you were talking about coaches that mean a lot in the conference. I know you didn't mean to forget his name, but he's one that really needs to be talked about. Tony Bennett at the helm has really changed this team and has turned this team into a top-notch championship caliber basketball team year in and year out. Now, the last few years haven't been exactly the UVA basketball that we've seen in years past in winning wise, but they've still produced some top-notch defense. They have been one of the best defenses in the ACC year in and year out. The problem is, Steve, is even though they're doing great on defensive, they can't score. They're having a hard time scoring the basketball. They are returning 5 starters this year, and they brought in a really nice transfer from Ohio, actually a guard that beat them in the March Madness back in 2020. So 2020. So really interesting on that one. That was a really cool interview listening to Tony Bennett talk about bringing him in and saying practices are pretty fun every time he misses a shot. He says, how come he couldn't do that against us in the NCAA tournament? So pretty neat. But, getting the 5th-year starter guard, Kai Clark, that's obviously where this team wraps around is through Clark. And if Clark can find a way to get this team to score more, and they don't have to score by a lot because their defense is shut down. They have to just win ball games. 12-8 in the conference was pretty impressive, though. When you look at that, based on the rest of the conference and how they sat, they did sit 6th in the conference. Not terrible. Not terrible at all. I like UVA. Are you going to clap your hands and tell me these guys are overrated too? Because I'm pretty high on these guys as well.
No, in fact, when we were talking about who we were going to put in here, I was very insistent that UVA has to be part of the equation. You touched on 2 of the things. I didn't leave Bennett out. I was saving him
for
when we were talking about the Cavaliers. He makes adjustments as well in game and at halftime as any coach in the country, let alone the ACC. Clark, he's gutsy. He's a veteran. He knows how to get the ball to the players that are going to score. And you talked about Vanderplas from Ohio. I'm so high on that kid that I almost wore my Ohio Bobcat shirt and not my Duquesne Duke shirt here for our initial podcast, because that's how much of a difference maker I think that he can be, and he can play defense. All of these guys that potentially are going to improve their scoring with another year under their belt and just as they mature, and they play good defense. You can add that to every single player on the Cavalier roster. I don't think that there's a bad defender, unless you had to take a coach off the bench and put him in due to injury or illness or something. I mean, it's always, and they play great defense. And that makes so much of a difference in today's NCAA, because so many teams play good enough defense to win, but they don't focus and they don't take pride in the effort on the defensive end of the game. And I think that's what makes Virginia dangerous. Now, they went to the NIT last year, right? They didn't make the NCAA field. Am I correct on that? Or
that's right. And this is where I get to plug in my roots here. Okay. And they lost to St. Bonaventure.
I was setting the alley-oop
in the semifinals, though. Yes, it was a good game.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I think people. I'm trying to find a way to say this without talking down to the analytics crowd and without talking down to people that like to see the flashy part. And all that is great. And it's fun when you're watching a game in December or January and seeing all these alley-oops and all these stars behind the back and, people drilling, 6 or 7 threes in a row. That's all exciting. It's all about, as Herm Edwards used to famously say, you have to win. You play to win the game. You have to win the game. And that's what Virginia does, perhaps better than anyone in the conference, because they have to pay attention to every small detail to keep pace with the North Carolinas and the Dukes and any of the high octane teams. North Carolina State, who probably will not be a tournament team, but they've got that transcendent talent. Virginia, for an old school basketball fan like myself, those are the teams I love to watch.
They play their game, and
Yes.
they make their opponent play their game. And that's why they did so well, even with maybe a roster that wasn't as talented as some of the others in the ACC last year. Now they bring most of them back, another year under their belt. They're going to be more experienced. You'd assume that talent's only going up, not down. They brought in a great transfer from Ohio. I like this team. If they can find a way to improve their shooting percentage just a little bit, and obviously continue their top-notch defense, this team is not going to be 12-8 in the conference. This is a 14-15 win team in the conference. That's how I feel about this team when it comes to that.